Hi everyone, welcome to this first week in working in human service organizations. So in this week, really, we are focusing on understanding how human service organizations get to shape social work practice. So three key objectives, really, we are trying to explain why organizational awareness matters for social work practice. Shall also try to identify the key features of human service organizations, and later on we shall be engaging in a reflection which really tries to connect our diverse placement experiences to social work roles. So in this first module, we shall try to engage in this quick question of why organizational awareness matters. So really, in the first reading for this week, you'll realize that social work practice is always really shaped by organizational policies, hierarchies, cultures, resources, and the broader context of the agencies, organizations, or organizations where we are working. So John and May in the textbook clarifies this by saying that social and welfare work, as practiced in Australia, is an organizational as well as a professional activity. And that social and welfare workers in this country, almost without exception, are dependent on organizations for employment, resources, legitimacy, and consumers. And their relations with consumers are shaped by the membership to organizations, as are their efforts to affect social, political, and community change. If workers are to provide an effective service to their consumers and to the broader community, it is essential for them to be aware of the organizational character of their work and to develop skills in organizational analysis and practice. Really core statement from the text, and I think this idea will be really central to everything we are doing this week. And what it's really telling us is just that, first of all, and you'll realize this already from the different places where you are doing your placement, that the environments in which we do practice social work vary. People practicing in a hospital might have different experience from people practicing in an NGO, or people practicing in child protection focused services might have different experience from people practicing in a disability related service. So the second idea here is really that practice perspective is embedded in organizational functions beyond client-centered interactions, and that all these really, and the entire context behind the organizations where we are working, gets to shape and affect the service delivery itself. So organizational context therefore gets really to influence social workers' professional identity through norms, expectations, and bureaucracy. So this is becoming very clear, really, of how organizations get to shape practice, and that the fact that really practice is never neutral. It's pretty much dependent on the diverse places where we are working and the context of practice. Unfortunately, we get to notice this impact of the organizations on our work. Maybe not in a prompt way. Maybe we just come to organizations and we start doing our work and we have all the goodwill of giving outcomes, but we don't get to really be mindful early on how the organization itself gets to affect practice. And again, in the textbook, Jones and May got to challenge some of these conventional themes, the mindset we come with while entering a new agency, whether for placement or first time practicing, There are these ideas that organizations are a secondary sphere of knowledge and practice for workers. And it's quite normal to see a new worker just trying to say, why should I focus on the bureaucratic aspect of things instead of just focusing on my direct practice with the client? And the challenge is that really workers are primarily engaged in organizational as well as professional activities. It's not one or the other, but it is both at the same time. The other idea they are trying to challenge here is that organizational understandings is relevant only to limited areas of practice, such as people engaged in the policy and admin roles. But the truth actually is that organizational understanding is central to all areas of practice, including even if you are doing casework, group work, or any other clinical role, you are still really engaged in dealing and negotiating your role with, heavy bureaucratic and managerial processes. So really the idea of organizations being at the center of everything we do as social workers is a central one. And you have all these other statements here, which definitely these authors tried to challenge and, giving alternative ways, more critical ways of understanding the centrality of organizations to our work. So clearly, organizations get to do more than just setting boundaries or constraints, and they actively produce norms, routines, and expectations that really define what practice is within a specific setting. And that workers' professional identity, decision making, and understanding of good practice are very often really shaped by the organizational cultures and institutionalized ways of working. There are practices which might be valued in specific areas or specific organizations, but which might not as much be valued as they are in other organizations. And this actually means, again, as I said, that practice is never neutral or purely individual. It's something which is socially and organizationally constructed. But again, as I said, most workers do not realize that until work is affected by organizational politics or structural apparatus. So what we shall do now will be really to focus on a few videos from practitioners. You'll hear voices of people probably already, some familiar faces, and these were really recorded by my wonderful colleague, Marui. So you'll see her really asking questions to these colleagues, and they will be telling you things they wish they had known before entering their practice or even before taking their placement. And I believe, you'll definitely resonate very much with these voices from practitioners. Thank you very much and see you soon.